How do I?
Tonight we're following breaking news following an officer-involved shooting. It happened in West Baltimore, Pennsylvania Avenue and Lawrence Street. The police commissioner described a chaotic scene after police shot a man after he pulled a gun on them. WBR2 News' Raven Payne was at the scene. She joins us now live from shock trauma, where the officer is being treated tonight. Raven?
Yeah, Kelly, well, I want to start off by saying the officer who was shot in the foot is in fair condition here at Shock Trauma. Police Commissioner Worley's actually in there right now speaking with him, and the suspect who was shot is in critical condition at a different local hospital. Now, Commissioner Worley says this all started off as a routine patrol that usually happens in that West Baltimore community that ended in chaos. Now, we were actually a street or two over from where this happened at a community meeting about reducing crime when we heard sirens and were met with a very large scene, including a helicopter circling the area telling people to leave. Now, large scenes can be expected at officer-involved shootings, but Commissioner Worley says officers from all over the city were called because the crowd was swarming and interfering with the situation. Worley telling us this all started with 3 officers in a police car on Pennsylvania Avenue and Lawrence Street, believing a man on the street had a gun. Now, he says those men got out of the car and approached the man trying to talk to him. Then that man, he says, ran and a brief struggle ensued. The man broke away and shot at officers. Police saying all 3 officers shot back and the weapon was located on scene. Another neighbor in that community telling us he heard about 8 to 10 gunshots go off and people started scattering. Now, Commissioner Worley says all 3 officers shot at the suspect. Again, he also says he hasn't seen enough of the body cam footage to know if it was officers or EMS who provided aid to the suspect on scene. Again, telling us the crowd, who he says at one point chased the officers during that initial pursuit, interfered long enough to delay officers providing aid to the suspect. And this is, of course, all under investigation. For now, live in Baltimore, Raven Payne, WMAR2 News.
Continue to follow that breaking news out of West Baltimore. An officer is recovering at shock trauma after being shot in the foot in West Baltimore.
Yeah, we're told the suspect is in critical condition. The Attorney General's Office of Maryland is investigating.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels is live at shock trauma with the latest. Keith.
Well, Maxine and Kai, you said it, the officer here now in fair condition, the way the commissioner describes it, and the suspect, an adult male, his identity unknown, he is in critical condition. Now, the commissioner detailed what led up to the shooting, part of which included 3 officers traveling down Pennsylvania Avenue spotted what the police commissioner calls someone believed to be armed. He says when the officers approached the man, there was a foot chase. The man turned, wielding a weapon. There was a foot chase, then a struggle. He turned, presented a weapon, he says, and then shot the officer in the foot, and then the other officers returned fire. Several gunshots fired, according to police, with those bullets striking the suspect. Again, that individual in the hospital upstairs here at Shock Trauma in critical condition. Police say a weapon was found at the scene. That weapon, they say, belonged to that individual who was engaged in gunfire between those officers. And then the commissioner also said that when that suspect went down on the ground, the usual procedure is for police officers to try to render some aid. But he said during that chase, people in the community were also involved in the chase. They were running behind the police officers as the police officers were chasing the suspect. And he says that when that suspect went down from the gunfire, police officers were kind of held back from rendering aid to the suspect because of all the people that were impeding, in his words, them rendering aid to that suspect. He said other officers did respond, regained control of the crowd, and then the officers were able to give some aid to the suspect until the ambulance could arrive and then bring him here to the hospital. But again, a police officer upstairs now in fair condition. The suspect, an adult male, his identity unknown at this time.
Is where we've been and what we've been through.
I I used to see him through our community delivering fresh produce, fruits, and vegetables.
I know BJ, the hood know BJ, everybody know BJ. BJ got the fruit in the back of the horse. He let the kids ride the horses. He bringing us fresh fruit all the time. You know what I mean? Everybody know BJ. He's a prominent member of West Baltimore.
Hey man, we just want to say, man, we love you, BJ. And we forever rolling with you, shorty. You heard me?
Justice for the fruit man. So hard to say goodbye
no man should
to yesterday.
Mixed with the sounds of daily life, Baltimore streets ring with a distinctive melody. It's the traditional call of air robbers. That's the name for fruit and vegetable vendors that sell their produce on horse-drawn carts. For BJ, who says his love for the job has kept him out of trouble.
Oh, I'm gonna keep on going till I can't walk no more. We gonna be around. We ain't going nowhere. It's been around over 100 years. It shouldn't go nowhere.
And this the f out. I'm telling you, I be and this the f out. I'm telling you. What's up, brother? I'm trying to tell you, I ain't even playing, brother. I'll be one dead ass nigga. Y'all want to spray the mace, boy? You
Out here some bitches. Y'all some bitch ass niggas. Y'all just shot a nigga, man. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Bitch niggas, you niggas. Man, fuck out of here. Y'all just man, fuck. You gotta get him on man. Y'all some bitch you bitch ass niggas. Fucking touch him.
So y'all, basically, I'm coming from the train station. I walk up, niggas crying. Feel so bad for them. Police taped up everywhere. Police everywhere. Somebody done got shot. Police done shot him. Look at all this fucking police. It go all the way down there. It's too much going on, bro. I can't even leave.
Good, yo?
No, my face is, I was worried about you.
I just had to come out here and make sure you was good, yo.
I was telling my husband, my face is on fire, bro. I was telling my husband, I hope you're good, yo. I swear to God, I was telling my husband.
Headquarters this afternoon. The body camera footage released of the deadly Baltimore police shooting last week in Upton. Police Commissioner Richard Worley speaking on it.
In the days following the shooting, there have been slightly different accounts on the moments leading up to 3 officers opening fire on Bilal Abdullah Jr., who was a well-known Arabber in the community. One of the questions surrounding the incident was why Abdullah was approached by police in the first place, to which Police Commissioner Worley said
that officers were notified that Mr. Abdullah brandished a firearm and made threatening comments towards another individual just prior to this incident.
However, when asked how that information came about, Commissioner Worley says it was not a 911 call, and that it was information that came directly to an officer from someone who observed Abdullah's behavior. Caitlin Bancroft, WBAL News Radio 1090 and FM 101.5.
Sorry, it's a little warm in here. This is normally the coldest room in the building. All right, sir. Cameras, thumbs up for me. Good. All right, sir.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Joining me today are Deputy Commissioner Ryan Nadal and Deputy Commissioner Kevin Jones. We're here to release the body-worn camera footage of the police officer-involved shooting that occurred on June 17th at Pennsylvania and Lawrence. We understand that any use of force by law enforcement leads to a high level of public concern and possible criticism. We're committed to continuing conversations with our residents, stakeholders, and leaders. Additionally, we know that through transparent and extensive investigation will be conducted by the Attorney General's office alongside our department. At this time, I'll turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Nadal to go over the body-worn camera videos.
Good afternoon. As the Commissioner stated, we're going to release the body-worn camera videos, which shows the police officer-involved shooting that took place on June 17th, 2025 at approximately 7:18 p.m. Following our body-worn camera release policy, the video has been given to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and the Baltimore Office of Equity and Civil Rights. Additionally, we have shown the video to the family. We are only releasing video from government videos recordings and not from private video recordings, according to the policy of the Attorney General's Office. To put some context into what you're about to see, on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, Detectives Devin Yancey, Omar Rodriguez, and Cedric Ellaby were from our group violence unit, which is known as GVU, were patrolling the police vehicle near the 1700 block of Pennsylvania Avenue. Detectives had received information that Mr. Abdullah was in the area, had displayed a firearm, and made threatening statements. As the detectives stopped in the area, Detective Rodriguez exits the vehicle and begins to approach the male later ID'd as Mr. Abdullah. Mr. Abdullah was on the sidewalk and had a brown satchel over his shoulder. As the detective approaches, Mr. Abdullah turns and begins to walk away, walking behind a marked police vehicle, which was also parked in the area. As Detective Rodriguez gets closer to the subject, he begins to run and grabs the satchel. After a short distance, Detective Rodriguez catches up with the suspect, places his hands on Mr. Abdullah's shoulders, and Mr. Abdullah begins to fall. One round can be heard going off. You can see in the video, at the time the round is discharged, all BPD members on scene have their weapons holstered. The suspect then turns towards the officer and points his gun. The officer immediately takes cover and then returns later to engage the individual. The two other detectives in their police vehicle exit. One of them, Detective Yancey, exchanges gunfire with Mr. Abdullah. During that exchange, Detective Yancey is struck in the right foot. The officer in the marked patrol vehicle, which Mr. Abdullah walked behind, Officer Ashley Negro Santiago, also exited her vehicle and discharged her weapon. Once the suspect is on the ground and the gunfire ceases, the officers approached Mr. Abdullah, but were unable to render aid due to a large crowd which was forming. The videos you're about to see come from various body-worn cameras, an MTA camera, and a City Watch camera. We'll now show the video.
Do you guys need us to turn the lights off? The cameras, would it be helpful?
Yeah, it would be helpful.
It would?
The individual reached inside his bag. You can see the officer is still holstered. That's where their first round goes off. We believe this is the ricochet that struck Officer Yancey and the Detective Yancey in the right foot. As part of the investigation, we have gathered private videos from various locations. On one of those, we could see Mr. Abdullah making any threatening statements and taking his firearm out of his brown satchel, which he had over his shoulder when the detectives approached him. For informational purposes, all officers involved in these type of events are assigned to administrative duties, which is the protocol, and they're referred to our health and wellness program. I'll turn it back over to the Commissioner for questions.
Actually, before we get to the questions, this is truly a tragic incident. Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the family of Mr. Abdullah, our officers in our community. Our officer has been released from the hospital and is recovering and doing well. He and the 2 additional officers who fired their weapon are on administrative leave and have been referred to Officer Safety and Wellness. As the Deputy Commissioner Nadal said, we have verified that officers were notified that Mr. Abdullah brandished a firearm and made threatening comments towards another individual just prior to this incident. This is what led officers to attempt to stop him, and they had reasonable articulable suspicion to do so. This is an area that continues to be an area of concern where we continue to have officers present to stop violence. Less than a month ago, we had a double homicide on this same block where a young man and young woman lost their life due to senseless gun violence. Our group violence reduction strategy is present in the area, helping our young people with services to provide alternatives to violence, while also focusing our resources on reducing gun violence. Our neighborhood coordination officer have been active in this neighborhood, and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement has begun its coordinated neighborhood stabilization response following the incident. I recognize that emotions are high at the loss of a cherished member of the community, and it's deeply felt. Use of force is never a first resort for the officers. As you can see, they had their guns holstered. We remain dedicated to an ongoing and open dialogue with our residents and full and thorough investigations. At this time, we'll take questions.
I'll be leading the questions. We're going to start with WBAL David Collins.
Commissioner, was the Officer Yancey struck by so-called friendly fire?
We don't know what he was struck by yet, because they still have to wait for the ballistics, and I don't know if we got a round out of his foot.
So we do know that Mr. Abdullah had fired 3 rounds. From the direction and review of the video, it does appear that the round is coming from Mr. Abdullah, striking towards him, striking him. But at this time, of course, we're within 7 days of investigation. We have to go through all of the ballistics, but that's what it appears preliminarily.
Follow up, David. Dariana.
So we heard concerns about like mental health issues and challenges with him. To what extent was that a factor in you all going out there and?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
But to what extent was mental health a concern in this situation?
We had no information about that at that time. All the officers had was the information about the armed person.
Follow up, Dariana.
Also, during the scene where people were surrounding him, how many officers were kind of dealing with that, and how many officers were tending to him and rendering aid?
They couldn't render aid because as you can see, the community was, the members being surrounded. So they had to wait for additional resources before we could render aid.
WJZ, Mike?
Have you been able to interview the officers at this point, and do you expect to be able to?
We will eventually, but they only have to give a public safety statement in the beginning, and then they all basically wait until the investigation continues.
Can you say anything about the weapon recovered from Mr. Abdullah?
Anything is...
As far as...
Yeah, it was a Colt 380, and so it was loaded with both 380 rounds and 9mm rounds.
Vincent with Fox.
Commissioner, you say officers got information that he had approached someone with a gun. Was that through dispatch, or was that from someone on the scene that approached officers?
We have nothing from dispatch. There was no 911 call that we're aware of.
Follow up. We know the caliber of the gun. Do we know if it was legal? Was it stolen or anything like that? Was he legally able to carry that gun?
So he was prohibited from carrying a firearm. The weapon, we have traced it back to the purchaser. We're working with ATF now to go through that process.
Elizabeth?
So for both the incident itself, the actual shooting, and then also the aftermath with the community residents surrounding them, was there anything that you think the officers should have or could have done differently in both situations?
I mean, it's an open investigation and it's fluid. I think the officers did an exceptional job.
And then specifically with the aftermath, like, are you guys going to be studying that as kind of a learning opportunity for what to do?
We look at every use of force as a possible learning opportunity because nobody's perfect. So our officers are put in a very, very difficult situation. They had to try to render aid, but their safety is also paramount because they were being surrounded by a crowd that was not happy.
The Baltimore PD. Maddie with the Baltimore PD. Thank you, Commissioner. An approximation is fine, but do you have a rough idea of how many shots were fired total and how many came from police versus Mr. Abdullah?
So we had 38 rounds that were shot by what we believe at this point were discharged by the police officers at the scene. We're still doing an analysis of all the casings that were located. 3 rounds were discharged by Mr. Abdullah, and those casings we have.
And how many of those rounds struck Mr. Abdullah?
So we're still pending the autopsy from the OCME.
Dan?
We've heard varying accounts about how that first shot was fired, and I noticed there's been kind of vague statements. What do we know about how that first shot went off and if Mr. Abdullah was pulling the trigger and where it went?
Well, I think we can be pretty certain he was pulling the trigger because all of our officers have their guns holstered.
Can we go back to you can go back to the one where he's pulling it out of the holster.
Or just freeze it?
The one that you did before the pull-out.
Okay.
So right there you can see, this is the brown satchel that we later see on another video of him pulling a firearm out of. But here, he's carrying the brown satchel, and it's a tad bit grainy on this screen, but you can see him reaching to pull the firearm out. And then as we move forward, you'll hear shortly after this, the one round going off. He then has the firearm in his hand, and from another video, from the MTA video, you can see the officer, Detective Rodriguez, is still holstered at that point. So the only gun that was out at that point was his.
And you can also see at the beginning of the video, he has the satchel behind him, and as he walks behind the car, he moves the satchel to the front of him.
Just on this issue of the information that was received about the threats, I mean, you said it wasn't a dispatch. Like, is it from an informant? Is it from, like, how did you get that information?
Go ahead.
So the information came directly to a police officer of somebody who had observed the displaying of the firearm and the aggression of the person, who then notified a police officer about that. That police officer reached out to the detectives because they were in the area to let them know about it.
We're going to do one last round around, so any follow-up questions? We'll start with David.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did officers in the area know Mr. Abdullah?
I believe they were familiar with him, but I don't know because we haven't really talked. We can't really talk to them.
Mike?
What do you advise your officers to do in a situation like what we saw afterwards with the crowd kind of coming toward them, and how would you say that they handled that?
I think they did a great job. I think what they did is exactly what we teach them to do. They stepped back, created space, and called for additional units. Once the additional units got there, they tried to render aid to Mr. Abdullah, but unfortunately passed.
Ariana?
How many of the officers were in plain clothes with the police vest, and how many of them were just wearing the police uniform?
I believe 3 of them had the police vest, and one of them had the uniform.
Vincent?
Or 2 and 2. Lindsay's saying it was 2 and 2.
Of the officers that shot, 2 of them had the vest on, 1 of them were in a police uniform.
But 1 did not shoot that had the vest.
Vincent?
Commissioner, I know we're only less than a week out, really. Why did you release the video so soon? Was it because of concerns and criticism that you mentioned?
Yes.
And I would also say the Attorney General's office rule is 14 days. We always try to follow our own rule, get it out as soon as possible. If there's no reason to hold it, we'd rather be transparent and put the videos out. It is a week. You know, sometimes we do them 9 days. It just depends on when it falls and how much video we have to pull together in coordination with all of our partners.
And we do different than most other agencies. We put the video out and we take questions, and just to be transparent for what our officers encountered.
Elizabeth?
I'm good.
Maddie? May?
Can you talk about whether there's any actual evidence of the communication from a police officer to the detectives? Is there a radio transmission? Is there body camera footage of the exchange, the discussion that they had to where the officer told the detectives about hearing that Mr. Abdullah had a firearm and was brandishing it?
So we're still in the gathering phase of all the evidence and going through all that, so we can't release it at this point.
But does it exist?
No, I think we were referencing, there is, as the commissioner mentioned earlier, there is video prior to this of him brandishing a firearm inside a store. We do have that video. We cannot release that per the AG's rules.
Okay, understood.
Justin?
The first, I know that the body cameras, it takes like 30 seconds for the
Minute.
audio to kick in. But there's gonna be some questions then about, did they identify themselves as officers? Do you know one way or the other?
So we don't have the answer to that question at this point. Again, we haven't interviewed the officer yet. I will just say about the buffer, which is why at the beginning you hear no sound, then the sound comes off. Our system is set up when it's activated that it actually takes the buffer, which is 1 minute prior. So it gives us the benefit of having the video. It does not do the audio, per the state law. So it does the video. So we don't know exactly if there was a conversation between the two at this point. Of course, that's still under investigation, and once we do the interviews, we'll probably have an answer to that question. But at this point, we don't have that.
The vest they were wearing do say Baltimore Police.
That is correct. Correct.
Dan?
As far as the crowd that formed around him, do we have any indication of how long it took for officers to actually reach and start rendering aid?
3 to 4 minutes from the time they fired the first round.
Any last questions? Thank you guys so much. And I'll be hanging out afterwards as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It will be when we get back. So just a few things.
Ben, do you need him to roll the video again, or?
To say goodbye to yesterday.